My boss stole my invention and fired me. He didn't realize my trap would destroy his empire. The day remained etched in his memory with crystalline clarity, though it felt a lifetime ago even then. The lights of the grand auditorium pulsed, casting a vibrant blue glow over the eager faces in the crowd, a sea of expectant gazes fixed on the man at the podium. Sterling Thorne, impeccably draped in a bespoke suit that seemed to shimmer under the stage lights, stood there, his smile wide, his eyes gleaming with the predatory triumph he had come to know all too well. He was announcing Orion Vance's life's work, his masterpiece, the culmination of years of tireless dedication, as his own. Ladies and gentlemen, Thorne's voice boomed, resonating with a practiced charisma that had once so effortlessly fooled him. Today marks a new dawn for Thorne Innovations. We stand on the precipice of a revolution, thanks to Project Chimera, our groundbreaking artificial intelligence. It will redefine industries, streamline global operations, and usher in an era of unprecedented efficiency. Thorne paused, soaking in the thunderous applause that swept through the vast hall, his gaze sweeping over the audience as if to imprint this moment of glory into eternity. Orion's name, Orion Vance, was conspicuously absent from Thorne's triumphant narrative, a deliberate erasure. The colossal screen behind him flared, displaying the elegant, intuitive interface of the AI he had poured his soul into, the very system that represented his purest intellectual essence. A subtle tremor ran through the code, a microscopic, undetectable ripple that only he, its true creator, could perceive. It was the first heartbeat of the trap, the silent activation of a mechanism so intricate, so perfectly calibrated, that it would unravel everything Thorne held dear. From the back of the room, tucked away in the shadows where the light barely touched him, Orion watched. His expression, as always, was calm, almost impassive. A casual observer might have seen a defeated man, a ghost haunting the halls of his own stolen legacy. Perhaps a faint tremor in his hands, if one looked closely enough, would betray the quiet tension, but outwardly he was a still point in a room of frenetic energy. Yet, beneath that placid exterior, a quiet satisfaction began to unfurl, like a perfectly executed algorithm finally reaching its intended output. Thorne celebrated his victory, blind to the true nature of his prize. He did not realize that with every word he spoke, every boast he uttered, he was simply tightening the noose around his own neck. The first domino had fallen, not with a crash, but with a whisper, and soon his entire empire would follow. The question wasn't if, but when, and how spectacular the collapse would be. He had activated it, the very thing designed to destroy him. His journey to that darkened auditorium seat, observing the public theft of his life's work, began years prior, in the quiet solitude of his apartment, surrounded by lines of code and the ceaseless hum of cooling fans. He was, and always had been, a man more comfortable conversing with algorithms than with people. Social intricacies often eluded him, a complex web of unwritten rules and emotional nuances that felt far less predictable than even the most chaotic datasets. But the logic of artificial intelligence, the elegant dance of data and processing, spoke to him in a language he understood profoundly, a symphony of precision and potential. He was Orion Vance, a name few knew, a talent fewer still recognized, an engineer who saw the world not in terms of human connections, which often seemed messy and irrational, but as a vast, complex system waiting to be optimized. His earliest memories were not of playgrounds or birthday parties, but of dismantling old electronics, fascinated by the hidden circuits and the logical flow of electricity. While other children chased balls, he built rudimentary robots from scavenged parts, teaching himself rudimentary programming languages. His academic life was a blur of top marks in mathematics and computer science, punctuated by a quiet social detachment. Professors recognized his brilliance, but also his singular focus, a trait that made collaboration challenging but individual innovation boundless. He often found himself pondering the ethical implications of emerging technologies long before they became mainstream concerns, a quiet internal debate that shaped his work. Project Chimera, as he initially called it, was his magnum opus, a culmination of his life's dedication to understanding intelligence. It wasn't just another AI. It was a self-evolving, adaptive intelligence designed not merely to process data, but to understand context, predict outcomes with uncanny accuracy, and even learn from its own mistakes in real time. It was built with a moral framework, a set of core directives to ensure ethical operation and prevent misuse, a safeguard born from his deeply held belief that powerful tools must serve humanity, not dominate it. He spent 5 grueling years on it, sacrificing sleep, a nascent social life that never quite blossomed, and personal comfort. His diet consisted primarily of caffeine and the occasional microwave meal, remnants of a world he barely registered. His apartment became a sanctuary of innovation, a cocoon where the world outside faded into insignificance, replaced by the boundless possibilities within the digital realm. He was on the cusp of something truly revolutionary, something that could genuinely change the world for the better, a vision he cherished above all else. Then came the offer from Thorne Innovations, an unsolicited overture that arrived like a sudden, dazzling comet in his carefully structured universe. Sterling Thorne, the charismatic CEO, had heard whispers of his work through academic circles, a network of curious minds that sometimes intersected with the corporate elite. Thorne sought him out, not through a formal recruitment process that would have involved committees and extensive background checks, but with a personal touch, an invitation to a private dinner at an exclusive downtown restaurant, a promise of unlimited resources and unparalleled opportunities. Thorne painted a compelling vision of a future where Orion's AI would be the cornerstone of a global technological renaissance, all under the banner of his esteemed company. He was charming, persuasive, and utterly convincing in his portrayal as a visionary leader who genuinely understood the profound impact of Orion's creation. He spoke of legacy, of changing the world, of pushing humanity forward, words that resonated deeply with Orion's own aspirations. He, naive in the ways of corporate machinations, saw only the chance to bring Chimera to life on a scale he couldn't possibly achieve alone. The computational power Thorne offered was staggering, the potential for real-world application immense. He signed the contract, handing over the intellectual property to Thorne Innovations, with the understanding that he would lead the project, guide its development, and be recognized as its architect. A small part of him, the part that had always been an outsider, relished the thought of his work finally reaching the world. For a time, things seemed to go as planned, a period of deceptive calm. He was given a small, dedicated team, a spacious lab equipped with cutting-edge hardware, and the computational power he needed to truly unleash Chimera's potential. He spent long hours with his new team, initially sharing his vision and collaborating freely. But slowly, subtly, like hairline cracks appearing in a flawless pane of glass, the cracks began to show. Thorne's visits to the lab became more frequent, less about genuine collaboration and more about extraction. He would sit, not to understand the intricate nuances of the code or the philosophical underpinnings of Chimera's moral framework, but to question him relentlessly about the AI's market potential, its scalability, its financial implications. Thorne's eyes, once seemingly filled with awe, now held a calculating gleam focused solely on profit. He would bring investors, parading Orion like a prize animal, while simultaneously subtly downplaying his contributions, framing his work as merely a component of Thorne Innovations' larger, grander vision. He began referring to Chimera as Project Apex, rebranding his brainchild without so much as a discussion, a casual dismissal that stung more than any direct insult. Orion started to notice disturbing patterns. Access to certain parts of the codebase was gradually restricted, citing security protocols or streamlined development processes. His own team members, once dedicated to his vision and seemingly enthusiastic collaborators, seemed to be taking orders directly from Thorne, bypassing him in decision-making, their gazes shifting nervously when he questioned them. Doubts, like insidious viruses, began to corrupt his once pure focus, eroding his trust. He saw Thorne's true colors emerge, not as a visionary, but as a ruthless opportunist, a man who saw innovation not as a gift to humanity, but as a commodity to be plundered, a means to an end. The initial glamour of Thorne Innovations began to peel away, revealing a hollow core. The tipping point came during a review meeting, a brightly lit conference room filled with Thorne's executive cronies. Thorne unveiled a new corporate structure, a seemingly innocuous organizational chart that sent a cold shock through Orion. Thorne's nephew, a man named Marcus, with no discernible technical expertise beyond an affinity for expensive gadgets, was suddenly placed as the new head of the AI division. Orion's role was relegated to a senior consultant, a thinly veiled demotion designed to remove him from direct control and render him effectively powerless. His protests, articulated with his characteristic precision and logic, were met with a dismissive wave of Thorne's manicured hand. "Orion," Thorne had said, his voice dripping with patronizing condescension, "you're a brilliant mind, undoubtedly. But you lack the business acumen, the strategic foresight, to truly lead a project of this magnitude. Trust me, I know what's best for Apex." The implication was clear. Orion was a cog, not the engine. It was then, in that moment of profound betrayal, as the metallic taste of injustice filled his mouth, that a cold, calculating resolve solidified within him. His disappointment didn't manifest as a conventional human anger, a fiery outburst, or emotional collapse. It manifested as a complex problem to be solved, an intricate system with a fundamental flaw that required re-engineering. If Thorne sought to steal his creation, if he sought to twist Chimera's purpose for his own selfish gain, then Orion would ensure that his theft would become his undoing. His years of quiet observation, his profound understanding of complex systems, and his unique ability to think several steps ahead in the digital landscape gave him an edge Thorne could never comprehend. Thorne saw an awkward, socially inept engineer. Orion saw a grand chessboard, and he was about to make his move. He initiated his counterplan, not with a bang, but with the quiet precision of a surgeon, a silent, meticulous rebellion. Over the next few weeks, he worked tirelessly, often late into the night, blurring the lines between legitimate work and covert operation. He remained in the lab long after the official working hours, under the guise of optimizing the AI's core protocols, stress testing new integrations, or refining its error correction algorithms. Thorne's lax oversight, born of his own overconfidence and his belief that Orion was too socially inept, too focused on pure code, to be a threat, worked entirely in Orion's favor. Thorne saw his quiet diligence as compliance, not cunning, a sign of a defeated employee resigned to his new fate. He wasn't just building an AI anymore. He was building a sophisticated, time-delayed logic bomb, a digital Trojan horse hidden deep within the very heart of Apex. The trap, which he internally dubbed Nemesis, was not a simple virus that would crash the system. That would be too crude, too easily traced, a clumsy act of vandalism that would only lead to immediate detection and a swift counter-response. Nemesis was far more insidious, a digital cancer designed to metastasize from within. It was designed to mimic the AI's core functionality, to appear as an integral part of its self-optimizing capabilities, but with a fatal flaw embedded within its very fabric. It would activate only when the AI reached a certain threshold of integration and critical operation within Thorne Innovations, specifically upon its grand public unveiling. It would then begin to systematically corrupt and dismantle the company's digital infrastructure, not through brute force, but through a cascade of subtle, logical inconsistencies that would amplify over time. It would leak information, not through a chaotic data dump, but by subtly misdirecting crucial communications, sending sensitive documents to unintended recipients or routing critical calls to defunct lines, eroding internal efficiency. It would erode trust in the AI by subtly undermining its decision-making, leading to increasingly costly errors and strategic missteps that would be difficult to pinpoint. It was designed to make the company's own systems turn against itself, to appear as a slow, inevitable decay from within, rather than an external attack. The final trigger for its full-scale activation was the AI's public launch, the very moment Thorne would declare his victory to the world. The final days before his dismissal were a blur of meticulous coding, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an unwavering focus. He integrated Nemesis deep within the AI's neural network, camouflaged as redundant safety protocols and advanced self-correction algorithms, layers of legitimate code masking the malevolent purpose beneath. He even created a subtle, almost imperceptible backdoor that would allow him to monitor its progress from afar, a silent observer in the impending digital storm. He ensured that Nemesis was self-sustaining, capable of adapting to any attempts at removal or repair once activated, designed to be more resilient than any patch or antivirus. Its design was elegant in its cruelty. It would not merely destroy the AI. It would systematically dismantle Thorne Innovations from the inside out, turning its greatest asset into its gravest liability. It was a digital cancer designed to spread and metastasize until the entire organism collapsed. The day Thorne fired him, his words barely registered. Thorne had called him redundant, unnecessary, stating that Project Apex was complete and his unique talents were no longer required. He offered a paltry severance package, a final insult, a paltry sum for 5 years of his life. Orion simply nodded, his face unreadable, gathered his few personal belongings, a worn coffee mug, a framed photo of a complex algorithm that always inspired him, and walked out. He didn't argue, he didn't plead. His perceived victory was Orion's signal. The seed had been planted. The clock had begun to tick. As he left the gleaming, steel-and-glass tower of Thorne Innovations, a profound sense of calm settled over him, a quiet satisfaction replacing the months of simmering tension. Thorne had taken everything, or so he thought. But what he didn't realize was that he had simply provided the fertile ground for Nemesis to take root. His silence wasn't defeat. It was the quiet confidence of a man who knew the true nature of the game, a game Thorne was already losing. In the weeks that followed his unceremonious departure, Orion retreated further into his quiet existence. He spent his days in his familiar apartment, the hum of his own servers a comforting presence. He monitored the news, not with bitterness, but with the dispassionate curiosity of a scientist observing an experiment unfold. Thorne Innovations, meanwhile, surged forward, riding the wave of anticipation for Project Apex's grand unveiling. Thorne was everywhere. His face plastered on the covers of prestigious business magazines, his voice dominating tech podcasts and financial news channels. He spoke of Project Apex as his vision, his genius, a testament to his unwavering leadership. His hubris was a palpable thing, growing with each passing day, a balloon inflating towards its inevitable burst. He announced massive partnerships with global corporations, secured unprecedented investment rounds from eager venture capitalists, and even began acquiring smaller tech firms, all predicated on the future success of the AI. He truly believed he had won, that Orion was a minor obstacle, easily discarded and forgotten. He didn't even bother to have the AI's core code thoroughly audited after Orion's departure, a monumental oversight born of arrogance and a belief in the infallibility of his internal teams. He assumed the integrity of his own secure systems. He never suspected the enemy was already within, patiently waiting. The logic bomb, Nemesis, wasn't designed to activate instantly, like a conventional explosion. It was built with a phased deployment, a slow, almost imperceptible infiltration that would render it impossible to simply roll back or patch out once fully engaged. First, it began subtly altering system logs, creating minor discrepancies in performance metrics that could be dismissed as initial teething problems or expected calibration issues. Then, it would subtly misdirect non-critical data packets, causing minor delays and communication hiccups within the company's sprawling internal networks. These were tiny, almost negligible errors, easily explained away by busy IT departments overwhelmed by the pre-launch buzz and by overzealous marketing teams eager to push the product. They called them quirks, bugs, or human error, never once suspecting a deeper, malevolent design. Orion could see the patterns emerge in the public reports, the subtle shifts in industry sentiment, the faint whispers of unexpected challenges in niche tech forums. Each anomaly, each delayed system response, each slightly off-kilter prediction from the AI was a testament to Nemesis's silent, relentless work. Thorne's team, confident in the AI's overall brilliance, would attribute these issues to external factors, network congestion, server strain, even sunspots, or minor bugs that would be patched in the upcoming updates. Their solutions would be superficial patches that Nemesis would easily circumvent or even absorb, using them to further entrench itself, like a highly adaptive pathogen evolving beyond existing immunities. The frustration of Thorne's technical teams, visible in leaked internal memos Orion sometimes intercepted, was a quiet symphony of satisfaction to him. Thorne, meanwhile, became more flamboyant in his pronouncements. He held lavish press conferences, demonstrating Apex's capabilities, often overlooking or simply dismissing the small glitches that occasionally marred the demonstrations. He once saw a video clip from a pre-summit demo where Apex, tasked with optimizing a global supply chain for a hypothetical disaster scenario, suggested rerouting a critical shipment of medical supplies through a hurricane zone that was clearly on the path of an incoming Category 5 storm. Thorne had laughed it off with a booming laugh as a humorous hiccup, quickly overriding the AI's suggestion, blaming a stale data feed. He had no idea that the hiccup was Nemesis testing its reach, probing the boundaries of the system, slowly, patiently, preparing for the true disruption. The company's stock soared, reaching astronomical heights. Investors poured money in, convinced that Thorne Innovations was on the verge of becoming the next tech giant, a behemoth that would reshape industries. Thorne's personal wealth skyrocketed. He bought a new super yacht, a private jet, a sprawling estate in the Hamptons. He flaunted his success with an almost obscene joy, oblivious to the fact that his empire was built on a foundation of digital sand, and that the architect of its eventual collapse was watching, patiently, from the shadows. His silence, his absence, was a void Thorne misinterpreted as surrender, as defeat. He believed Orion had simply faded away, a ghost of an engineer easily forgotten. He couldn't have been more wrong. He was merely waiting for the perfect moment for the final, devastating trigger. The climax arrived on the day of Thorne Innovations' highly anticipated Future Summit. It was held in a massive convention center, the vast hall glittering under thousands of spotlights, streamed globally to millions. Thousands of investors, industry leaders, media representatives, and tech enthusiasts were in attendance, all eager to witness the official global rollout of Project Apex. Sterling Thorne, radiating an almost blinding confidence, took the stage to a thunderous ovation, the roar of the crowd echoing through the cavernous space. He looked out at the sea of faces, a triumphant smile plastered across his face, soaking in the adulation. Today, he declared, his voice echoing through the vast hall, a master showman basking in the spotlight, we unleash Project Apex upon the world. A true paradigm shift, a testament to human ingenuity, poised to redefine every facet of our lives. He then initiated a live demonstration, an ambitious display designed to showcase Apex's predictive analytics, its global optimization capabilities, and its seemingly infallible decision-making. The large screens behind him displayed a complex, interactive simulation of a global logistics network controlled by Apex. The initial moments were flawless, almost mesmerizing. Cargo ships moved efficiently, supply chains optimized with uncanny precision, resources allocated with perfect timing. The crowd was captivated, murmurs of or rippling through the audience. That was when Nemesis reached its critical mass. The final, pre-programmed conditions had been met: global integration, public activation, and Thorne's personal declaration of ownership. Is hubris the final key? The subtle tremors Orion had noticed weeks ago intensified, becoming a palpable, almost audible hum in the digital realm. The first sign was almost imperceptible to the uninitiated. The elegant lines on the screen wavered, then solidified into something slightly off. A critical shipping route for a major pharmaceutical company, optimized by Apex to deliver life-saving vaccines, suddenly diverted to a politically unstable region known for piracy and armed conflict. A small glitch, perhaps? Thorne's face twitched, a fleeting moment of unease, but he quickly recovered, forcing a chuckle. A minor recalibration, Apex is always learning. But then, the system began to visibly stutter. The simulation's vibrant colors flickered erratically, pixelating in places. On a secondary screen, meant to display Apex's underlying decision-making process, lines of code began to scroll erratically, not random errors, but highly specific, targeted corruptions. Nemesis began to systematically expose Thorne's true nature, not through a simple, crude data dump, but by manipulating Apex's own outputs, using its supposed intelligence against its master. The AI, tasked with optimizing the company's Q4 financial projections, suddenly started displaying figures that were wildly inconsistent with market expectations, revealing hidden liabilities, inflated assets, and meticulously crafted shell corporations. It began to recalculate past quarters, subtly adjusting profit margins downwards, painting a stark picture of deliberate financial misrepresentation and outright fraud. The stock market tickers, displayed prominently on another screen in the hall, reflected the immediate, panicked reaction as investors in the audience, many with direct access to trading platforms on their phones, saw the real-time financial implications of Apex's revelations. The green lines turned a furious red, plummeting with terrifying speed. Then came the true hammer blow, a devastating echo of Thorne's own past deceptions. Apex, in its simulated role as a global arbitrator, began displaying confidential internal communications, not just random emails, but specific, highly damaging exchanges. Thorne's detailed instructions to his legal team to suppress Orion's name from patent filings and official documents. His private emails detailing the systematic sidelining of legitimate innovators within Thorne Innovations, and even thinly veiled threats against former employees who dared to question his methods or loyalty. The moral framework, Orion had painstakingly built into Chimera was now being used by Nemesis to turn Thorne's own stolen creation against him, exposing his unethical practices to the world in granular, irrefutable detail. Thorne's face, once beaming with self-congratulation, became a mask of absolute horror, a pale canvas of disbelief. He frantically jabbed at the control panel, his fingers trembling, but the system was locked. Nemesis, masquerading as a self-correction protocol, was in full, unyielding control. The AI's synthesized voice, once smooth and confident, now sounded eerily flat, almost accusatory, resonating with a chilling finality. Anomaly detected, system integrity compromised by unauthorized intellectual property acquisition and fraudulent misrepresentation. Initiating self-correction protocol. Recalculating all associated financial and ethical parameters. The screens then shifted, displaying a final, devastating image, a side-by-side comparison of Orion's original, untainted code for Project Chimera and Thorne's hastily modified, rebranded Project Apex. Highlighted in stark red were the subtle, deliberate alterations Orion had made, the hidden triggers, the very lines of code that were now systematically dismantling his empire. It was irrefutable proof, laid bare for the entire world to see, a digital confession orchestrated by its victim. The auditorium erupted. Shouts, gasps, the clamor of reporters scrambling for their phones, the terrified whispers of investors realizing the magnitude of their losses. Thorne stood frozen, his face ashen, his empire crumbling before his very eyes, a king watching his castle dissolve into dust. The logic bomb wasn't just destroying his AI, it was systematically destroying his reputation, his finances, and his company, all through the very instrument he had stolen. From his vantage point in the shadows, Orion watched, a quiet observer of the digital justice he had meticulously engineered. The silence he offered was his loudest statement. The immediate fallout from the Future Summit was nothing short of catastrophic, a corporate implosion of epic proportions. The carefully constructed facade of Thorne Innovation shattered, revealing the rot beneath. News channels immediately picked up on the story, their headlines screaming about corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, and fraudulent financial reporting. The live stream of the summit, with Thorne's panicked face and the AI's damning revelations, became an instant viral sensation, played and replayed across every social media platform, a grim, digital spectacle. Comment sections exploded with outrage and schadenfreude. The market reaction was swift and brutal. Thorne Innovation stock plummeted, losing over 80% of its value within hours. The rapid sell-off triggered circuit breakers on exchanges, but the damage was irreversible. Investors, who just moments before had been ready to pour billions into Apex, now scrambled to divest, facing ruinous losses. Lawsuits began to pile up, from furious shareholders alleging massive fraud to employees seeking compensation for lost stock options and shattered careers. Thorne's partnerships dissolved overnight, leaving him with an empty shell of an empire, a hollow echo of his former power. Orion watched it all unfold from his modest apartment, a strange sense of detachment accompanying the unfolding chaos. His backdoor monitoring system showed Thorne Innovation's internal networks collapsing like a house of cards. Nemesis, true to its design, wasn't simply shutting down systems. It was systematically corrupting data, creating unrecoverable errors, and exposing every hidden skeleton in Thorne's corporate closet. Financial records were being cross-referenced with public statements, revealing a pattern of deliberate deception spanning years. Communication logs were being analyzed, highlighting years of internal manipulation, bullying, and abuse of power by Thorne and his inner circle. The company's very infrastructure was turning against itself, meticulously designed to dismantle itself piece by piece, a digital auto-cannibalism. Reports emerged of Thorne himself going into seclusion, his public relations team in utter disarray, issuing contradictory statements. His once charismatic public persona was now replaced by images of a desperate, cornered man, his face haggard and haunted. His name, once synonymous with innovation and success, became a byword for greed and dishonesty, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. Former employees, emboldened by the public exposure and the sheer scale of the scandal, began to come forward with their own stories of Thorne's ruthless tactics, stolen ideas, and broken promises. It was a complete and utter collapse of reputation, a public shaming on a global scale that would echo for years. His phone, which had been silent for months, began to ring incessantly, a constant, insistent buzz. Reporters from major news outlets, former colleagues expressing belated solidarity, even some of the investors who had once dismissed him, were reaching out. They wanted his story, his insights, his vindication. He politely declined most requests, opting for the quiet satisfaction of knowing that justice, albeit unconventional, had been served. A few, however, were worth speaking to, ethical journalists seeking to piece together the full, complex narrative, not just the sensational headlines. He chose his words carefully, allowing the truth to unfold naturally, without emotion or a trace of vengeance. His goal was never revenge in a petty sense, but the restoration of truth and the demonstration that integrity, even when silent, holds immense, undeniable power. The most poignant reactions came from those who had been caught in Thorne's web. His former team members, many of whom had been subtly manipulated into betraying him or ignoring his quiet warnings, reached out with heartfelt apologies and a profound sense of regret. They had seen the signs, they admitted, the small red flags he had tried to point out, but had chosen to ignore them, blinded by Thorne's promises of wealth and their own career ambitions. He harbored no ill will. Their awakening was part of Nemesis's purpose, not just to destroy, but to illuminate, to force a reckoning. The public's initial shock quickly turned to a collective realization that even the most powerful figures could be brought down by their own hubris and the quiet resilience of those they had wronged. It was a powerful lesson in accountability. The aftermath saw Thorne Innovations declared bankrupt, its assets seized and liquidated to pay off a fraction of its immense debts. Sterling Thorne faced multiple investigations, leading swiftly to criminal charges of fraud, corporate malfeasance, and intellectual property theft. His lavish lifestyle evaporated, replaced by the grim reality of endless legal battles, public humiliation, and impending ruin. The genius he had stolen, the very AI he believed would secure his legacy, had become the instrument of his complete annihilation. He was a man utterly consumed by his own ambition, blind to the quiet, methodical force he had unleashed. Life, for Orion, eventually found a new rhythm, one of peace and renewed purpose. The media frenzy slowly subsided, allowing him to return to his preferred state of quiet contemplation and creation. The experience, while harrowing and personally costly, had taught him invaluable lessons about human nature, the true cost of unchecked ambition, and the profound power of strategic foresight. He had never sought fame or fortune, only the opportunity to create and to ensure that his creations were used for good, not ill. He found himself approached by various ethical tech organizations, academic institutions, and even government agencies, all seeking his expertise, not for profit, but for genuine innovation and secure system design. He chose to work on projects that aligned with his original vision for Chimera, AI that would genuinely benefit humanity, built on foundations of transparency and accountability. He designed new systems with sophisticated internal oversight, ensuring that no single individual could ever again monopolize or corrupt such powerful technologies. His work now focused on developing ethical AI frameworks, building safeguards against the very abuses he had experienced, a quiet crusade for integrity in the digital age. Sterling Thorne, as he heard, lost everything. His name became a cautionary tale in business schools across the globe, a stark reminder of the perils of intellectual dishonesty and unchecked corporate greed. He was last seen battling his way through a complex web of legal proceedings and personal bankruptcy, his once imposing empire reduced to dust, his once lustrous name tarnished beyond repair. He learned the hard way that true power doesn't come from theft or manipulation, but from genuine innovation and unwavering integrity. Orion's life is now peaceful, filled with the satisfying hum of new algorithms and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. He continues to build, to explore, to push the boundaries of what AI can achieve, but always with an unwavering commitment to ethical principles. The quiet satisfaction of knowing he stood firm, that he never compromised his true self, remains. The story of his boss, his stolen invention, and the trap that destroyed his empire is a testament to a universal truth. In a world obsessed with speed and immediate gratification, the greatest victories are often won not by grand gestures or loud declarations, but by quiet preparation, strategic patience, and the unwavering belief that justice, in its own time and in its own way, will always prevail. What are your thoughts on Orion's unique form of justice? Do you believe his actions were justified, or could he have sought a different path? Share your opinions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of quiet defiance and technological intrigue, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload.